I am so thankful to be able to be here today to share my testimony of my early life with God, with you all about God, what God has done in my heart and in my life. And I'd like to say, first of all, a lot of you may know me and know my life story. Then there may be people who don't know me, but I was born and raised in this county. I've always lived in this county, worked in this county, worked in two churches in this county, basically, and have retired as far as school teaching and as director of music. Not retired from God yet, and God's not retired from me. We're still working. He's still working on me, and I'm still worshiping the Lord and praising Him for everything He's done and done for me in my life. But I'll start kind of at the beginning. My life's journey actually started, of course, when I was born, but as a young child, I vaguely remember coming to this church to Murphy Creek with my grandmother and grandfather, basically during revival times. And so my earliest remembrances of coming to Murphy Creek, which I'm a member of now, were go way back. Okay, but when I grew up, my mother and daddy had a country grocery. It was not in the city limits of Louisville at the time, but now it is, except it's changed to another type of business. But I grew up within literally shouting distance of the church. And when I got in and there was never a question about going to church on Sunday. What are we going to do tomorrow? There was just never a question. We went to church. So I literally grew up in the church and within shouting distance of it, and anything that was going on there. Ultimately, later on, I was there. But let me just go back and share with you that in the fourth grade, my mother had taken piano, could play piano, not fluently, but she determined that it was time for me to start piano lessons, and that I did. And the lady that taught me piano, bless her sweet soul, was an older lady, and she just took me, as I'm sure she did her other students, under her wing. And she not only taught me piano, but she also taught me singing lessons. Now today you call that voice or voice lessons, but she called it singing lessons. And she'd say, okay, we're going to sing today. And she taught me literally the first, as far as playing piano for me to sing, not just religious songs, not just God songs, but good songs. And so from that, my piano, my singing started way back then. Little did I know what God had in store. He does have a plan. He still has a plan for my life, but He had a plan way back then. And little did I know that. But when I got into the fifth grade, by the way, let me back up and say one thing. My school teachers were always Christian ladies. It just seemed like to me now that I look back. And we had devotion every morning. And my fifth grade teacher was turned out to be a member of my church. A little bit later, she married a guy that was from Winston County, and so they came to our church. And she knew that God was, looking at me and wooing me. And she said one day at school, I thought you were going to go down tomorrow and make it public. And I said, I am. I've just got to get a couple of things straightened out. I actually became a Christian when I was in. It was a progressive thing, but I actually became a Christian actually and just invited Jesus into my heart when I was in the fifth grade, early in the fifth grade, and I was stocking baby food in my daddy's store. I'll never forget this, and I think it was on a Friday. And it just hit me all of a sudden, even though all these Sunday school teachers and church training teachers and what have you at my church had poured into me, it hit me when I was putting baby food up. My dad had showed me how to pull the old baby food out and put the new behind, the fresh, the new behind. And it hit me, that's kind of like it is with God. You take that old and you pull it to the front, because when you accept Christ, He's going to do away with that, okay? And then you're fresh, you're new, and so that made an impression on me. It may not make a lot of sense to a lot of people, but it really made an impression on me, and I could not wait. I really then, right there in that store, said, "Okay, God, I am ready. I'm going to make it public Sunday," and I couldn't wait till Sunday. And I walked the aisle and gave my heart to the public, to Jesus. I'd already done it with Him, and just within a couple of weeks, was baptized. And from then on, those seeds were planted and things just mushroomed. By the time I was in the fifth grade, also later in the year, the pastor that had been there moved. God called him somewhere else. And the pastor that I knew from the fifth grade to the 11th grade moved in and was there, and they had no children, and I became her child. Okay. She was music. She knew she had graduated music from college and religious music, religious, sacred stuff. And she taught me literally everything I knew until I went to college, as far as directing, singing parts, and she would come get me, and we'd go to her house and play and sing, and songs that I grew up on in the Baptist hymnal, the old Baptist hymnal. And I think now there were three Baptist hymnals Broadman Hymnal, the Baptist Hymnal, two or three others. But God has just blessed me, and all along the way, people have just poured into me, and so that's a large part, beside my parents, of what I and my family, of what I am today, is because of good Christian souls, sweet saints that have gone on to be with Jesus, just pouring into me. I went to college, and I did not major in music. I majored in elementary education with all of my hours of electives, and so I had a minor in music, even though at the time I don't think they called that a minor. But anyway, when the pastor that was there, those fifth through the 11th grade, left, shortly after, I mean, within a week or two, one of the deacons came to me and said, I need to talk to you about something. And I thought, what have I done? What have I not done? Because by that time I was already playing piano on Sunday nights at church. And he said, Betty, and we were a small church. And he said, we really need you to direct the choir, because I know you've been in the choir and you've watched Miss Sarah do that. And you know, and so I was overwhelmed. I didn't even know that I needed to pray about that. I just said, I will. And it literally, but God is all I can say, took me through all of that. And I did that until I graduated. And one part of the freshman year in college, I didn't know if I could handle college work and that. So I kind of dropped out a little bit, not dropped out of church, but dropped out of the leadership there. And then by the end of the second semester, summer, I knew that God was equipping me to handle college work as well as the church work to his directorship. So that started, and that ended up 32 years later. And a lot of things happened, and a lot of ups and downs in those 32 years, but God was there the whole way. And I will say there were more ups than downs. Then we moved to Murphy Creek, and again, it's kind of like life comes full circle sometimes. Like I told you, I remembered going here first when I was little with my grandparents some. And so now, as time has gone on by, I've retired from out here after 38 years. And so if you put those together, it sounds ridiculous, but it's 60 years that I've been in the ministry. And listen, had it not been for God, I promise you, I would have never ever made it. There are a lot more ups and downs, and I've just depended on God, and He has carried me really literally up in His arms a lot of times when I could not walk. And I would just encourage you, in the whoever watches this, if you haven't tried God, if you've not put your faith and your trust in God, don't wait another minute. Don't wait till another minute at all. Just, it's simple. By simple faith, you trust Him. And faith, that prayer is the key to heaven, but faith definitely unlocks the door. And many years after I was teaching, and after I was had been in the ministry a while, as far as music ministry, and was teaching school, a little girl came to me one day during Bible school, and we had talked about how to become a Christian. And she said, Miss Betty, isn't it kind of like you have a little chair? Of course, she's a child, so she's talking about a little chair, okay? If you're older, you might need a bigger chair. But she said, it's kind of like I have a little chair in your heart, and and it's empty, and you know about God, but you've never just said, God, I want you to come and sit in the little chair in my heart and stay there forever and be my Lord and Savior. And I thought that was just simply, I mean, everybody can understand that. And that's what she did. And it just made a big impression on me as about how to share my faith. And now she's a grandmother herself. And I know she's shared with her grandchildren about the Lord. And God has been good. I just, like I say, I invite you. We'd love to have you at Murphy Creek, but most of all, invite you to just invite Jesus into your heart. Just get into a quiet place, and you'll never be sorry. I read a thing on a church, front of a church one time, that said, try God, just try Him. You might like Him. If you don't, Satan will take you back. And I thought, wow, that is pretty profound. And a pastor once said in a sermon talking about salvation, and if you're not saved, or if you are, either you is, or you ain't. There's no straddling the fence. Just know that I pray that someone who hears this might be encouraged to put their faith, their hope, your faith, your hope, if that's you that's listening, in Jesus Christ. He will never forsake you. He will never leave you. And He is ever abiding in your heart and life. Thank you for listening to my testimony. It's a joy to give it.